Hello and welcome to this series of webinars on the Rural Access Index, or RAI. The RAI is one of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, which were developed in 2015 to monitor global progress on sustainable development. These webinars are part of a TRL project with the aims of refining the methodology for RAI calculation, piloting application of the new methodology, and increasing awareness and use of the RAI in general. This project was undertaken through ReCAP, which stands for Research for Community Access Partnership. The aim of ReCAP is to improve rural accessibility to economic opportunities and social facilities in Africa and Asia through improvements to infrastructure and transport. ReCAP is funded by UK Aid, which is a programme under the UK Department for International Development. This project was also conducted in collaboration with the World Bank, who are the custodian of the RAI SDG indicator. This presentation is part of a series of webinars produced under this project. Each webinar is a maximum of 10 to 15 minutes long, and some frequently asked questions are included at the end of each module. The webinars will cover an introduction and background to the RAI, RAI as part of the SDGs, RAI as it relates to rural development, data sources used in the calculation of RAI, a case study from Malawi, RAI accessibility factors, and the future direction of the RAI. This first presentation is the introduction for the series and will provide some background and history to the RAI, as well as putting it into context with the UN SDGs. We do recommend that you view these webinars in the sequence presented, but all the presentations will be made available and can be accessed as required. I'm going to start with an introduction and background to RAI. The background will include a brief history of the RAI, including introductions to the original World Bank methodology from 2006, the revised World Bank methodology developed in 2016, and the supplemental guidelines produced by TRL under this project in 2019. I will also introduce the UN SDGs, and the other webinars in this series will go into more detail. In simple terms, the RAI is defined as the proportion of the rural population who live within 2 kilometers of an all-season road. An all-season road is defined as one which is motorable all year by a four-wheeled vehicle, excluding short interruptions due to extreme weather events of up to a total of 7 days in 1 year, where these do not have to be consecutive days. So I'll give you an example of how RAI is measured using this diagram. This road in dark grey is an all-season road, and the shaded light grey band around it represents the area which is 2 kilometers from that road. This road in brown is not an all-season road, so it could be a motorcycle trail, for example. The house symbols represent individual household units, and let's just assume for this example that each symbol represents the same number of people. This pale yellow circle represents an urban area, so the population within that area are classified as urban population and would not be included in an RAI calculation. The 6 households outside the pale yellow area represent the total rural population. However, only the 2 households here, which are coloured in red, are within the 2 kilometre band from the all-season road. Since RAI is a proportional measure, in this case it would be 2 out of 6, or 33%. So why is the RAI important? Well, it was designed as an indicator of rural accessibility, in the knowledge that poverty is often higher in countries with low rural accessibility. There is evidence of significant correlation between accessibility and poverty, so it is regarded as an important development indicator. Households in more remote areas have lower levels of market participation and make less use of public services such as health and education, which are underlying factors in poverty. The RAI was originally defined in 2006 by the World Bank in the report by Roberts et al. Titled RAI, a Key Development Indicator. It recommended calculation through the World Bank Living Standards Measurement Surveys, or LSMS. These surveys are conducted by many national statistical offices, known as NSOs, and they include lots of questions on health, income, employment, education, and access to health services. At that time, there was no question in the LSMS that specifically asked, how far do you live from an all-season road? So the REI team tried to interpret other answers to estimate the REI, such as time taken to walk to the nearest bus stop or transport service. The Roberts report estimated REI in 64 countries. It recommended, going forward, that REI can be calculated by incorporating additional questions into household surveys, explicitly asking the household respondents the distance from their house to the nearest all-season road. However, these recommendations were not taken up. There was a general concern that such questions could be subjective and that it might therefore be difficult to produce an accurate assessment of REI. REI was not formally measured again until a decade later. Then, in 2016, DFID and the World Bank decided it would be appropriate to try and use geospatial methodology to measure REI, given the advances made in this technology over the previous 10 years, along with the increasing availability of relevant geospatial datasets. So, a study was carried out under the ReCAP program to develop a new methodology and trial it in 8 countries. The results from this 2016 study differed greatly from the 2006 REI study. In some countries, such as Bangladesh, the value of REI increased significantly, while in others, such as Zambia, it decreased significantly. These differences prompted ReCAP and World Bank to commission the current project to explain the differences and to make the methodology for calculating REI more consistent and more transparent. This led in 2019 to the current ReCAP project to revise, consolidate, and pilot application of the REI. The aim was to produce a more accurate, repeatable, and sustainable way to measure it. Supplemental guidelines were produced, building on the 2016 methodology. These emphasize the involvement of NSOs and other government agencies and how they need to coordinate to agree and produce an accurate measurement of REI. The guidelines included a quality assurance process and established how metadata should be recorded and stored. It was also recognized that road condition data was not always available for rural road networks, and, where it was available, it could be inaccurate or out of date. This led to the development of accessibility factors as an alternative way to identify the all-season aspect of a road network. The REI is calculated using the 3 spatial datasets shown here: the population distribution, the road network, and accessibility data. The methodology essentially consists of spatially overlaying these datasets in a geographic information system, or GIS, and performing fairly standard GIS calculations. It is possible to conduct this analysis on a desktop GIS, and the 2019 supplemental guidelines explain exactly how to do that. The UN SDGs are an important set of global indicators which address the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. They followed on from the Millennium Development Goals initiated in the year 2000. There is not a specific transport SDG, but transport is integrated into a number of the goals. SDG Goal 9 is related to industry, innovation, and infrastructure. SDG 9.1.1, which is the REI, is the only rural transport indicator, and so it is considered to be important by the donor community. REI was adopted as SDG 9.1.1 using the World Bank 2016 methodology. The World Bank is the custodian of SDG 9.1.1, and there are currently 3 partners who are UNECE, UNEP, and the Asian Development Bank. The African Development Bank and the Inter-American Development Bank are also interested in becoming partners. This demonstrates international commitment to the REI. The REI was adopted originally as a Tier 3 indicator in 2016 and promoted to Tier 2 in December 2018. Tier 2 means that it is conceptually clear, has an internationally established methodology, but that data are not regularly produced by countries. By June 2020, we have identified at least 34 countries that have measured the REI since 2016. The aims of this project include raising awareness of the REI and helping it to achieve Tier 1 status, which would involve it being regularly measured in at least 50% of all UN countries. Tier 1 status would cement the indicator's importance and would encourage countries to consider it along with other indicators as part of their rural development plans and strategies. This presentation has been the first in a series of 7 modules on the REI, giving a brief background and introduction. The other presentations go into more detail on the SDGs, methodology, data sources, and give a case study. They also discuss possible future directions for the REI. All presentations are available on the ReCAP YouTube channel and on the World Bank Data Catalog website. These are the key references for this presentation. Please refer to these as necessary. Okay, so we're now going to go over some frequently asked questions which relate to the topics covered in this presentation. Alright, and we'll do this for each module in this series of webinars. So the first question is, why does the REI use 2 kilometers as the reference distance from an all-season road? So this stems from the Roberts paper in 2006, which we covered earlier, and in that paper they regarded 20 minutes roughly as a reasonable time to walk to get to a transport service in the context of rural accessibility. And that 20 minutes walking time translates roughly to 2 kilometers distance. So that's where that comes from. Question 2, what about motorcycle trails and navigable waterways? So yes, this is an important question to bring up and to consider in this context. Of course, motorcycle trails, navigable waterways, secondary transport routes such as these do have an important role to play in rural accessibility in many countries. So they're not included in the current definition of REI because that relates purely and specifically to roads, and that definition is not going to be updated for at least a few years. So we have proposed additional secondary indicators to accommodate these secondary transport modes, and we'll cover this further in Module 3. Question 3, is there a difference between all season and all weather? So yes, there is a difference, and most engineers would consider all weather to mean effectively paved roads, paved surfaces. But gravel or unpaved roads can also be considered as all season. All season relates very specifically to the definition given in the REI metadata, which relates to a road being motorable all year round by the prevailing means of transport, with the exception of those 7 days where the road can be closed or impassable due to inclement weather. Question 4, are paved roads automatically regarded as all season? No, they are not, and that follows on from the previous answer, because paved roads can, of course, be, for example, they could be flooded for more than 7 days in a year. Their condition could deteriorate to the point where they are impassable by four-wheeled transport for over 7 days in a year. There are many reasons why a paved road could not fit the definition of all season. So no, they're not automatically regarded as all season. They have to fulfill the all season criteria, just like any other road. So that's the end of this webinar. Thanks for watching, and we hope you found it useful. You can find more information on the ReCAP website and in the references provided earlier in this presentation. You can also access the other modules in this series via the ReCAP YouTube channel and on the World Bank Data Catalog website.